Hi, my name is Giosue Greco, and my takeaway from working on Wrexham was to create a handcraft feeling for the sound of the show. I grew up in a very small town in Europe. The energy of the small town, it's very much what I've experienced growing up. So I really wanted to create a super handcrafted feeling where all the instruments can be very much heard, and most of the time these instruments are traditional instruments that are not played by professional musicians such as me. My creative process usually has to do with trying to find an instrument that I don't know very well, grab it and start playing around with it. And this is particularly fun because I don't know anything about the instrument. So any happy accident, then it becomes a new thing that I can then apply to another instrument that I know better. There is a cue that made it into the album. It's called Behind the Goal. Initially, it was going to be a bombastic type of cue with drums and trumpets and strings. But then as the main lead is a saxophone, and I picked the saxophone intentionally because it's loud enough to be present, but it's not bright enough to step on the dialogue. And one saxophone becomes two saxophone, and then soon enough we have like a saxophone choir going through an harmonizer and getting processed by delays and effects like that. And then ended up being the sound of Wrexham. In documentaries, there is a tendency for the music to complement what's happening on screen in terms of dialogue, trying to step away from the dialogue and not being too invasive. Where in a narrative, you have a little bit more freedom as a composer to just go for it and explore. Generally speaking, you have a little bit more of a space, of like creative space, where you can really like push your ideas and then and hope they make it into the movie. I studied classical music in Europe, and then I also studied music here in America. It was more of a technology focused. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is sometimes classical music, it gives you so much material, there's so much literature, you feel like you know so much. But there is a world out there of pure sounds that have very, very little to do with harmony. And I think what I've learned here in America is to experiment more with sound rather than being so nitpicky about harmony, if it makes sense.